What's up, guys? Larry Chen here. Welcome to another episode of Hoonigan Autofocus. Every single episode, I always say, hey, we got a special episode. This is legitimately kind of mind-blowing. So I woke up this morning at 4 a.m. I had no idea I would be shooting probably one of the most expensive cars in the world. We got Jeff O'Neill here. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Larry.
You drive this thing. You wheel the heck out of this thing. And I actually watched you drive this today, and I watched you get it sideways a little bit. It looked like so much fun. How do you even manage to drive? What's going through your head, first of all, when you're driving such an expensive vehicle?
Well, the good news is the reason these cars are so special is because of the way they handle. I mean, they are extraordinary cars. They only built 36 of them. And yet the owner of this car, Tom Price, is gracious enough and thoughtful enough that he wants this on the road. He wants people to see, hear, and smell this car. And he is so supportive of our event, Velocity Invitational, because a lot of these rare cars don't get on the track anymore. And we want a venue where spectators can come and see cars that are hidden away in private collections.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about Velocity events for a second here. So that's actually why we're here. That's why I came all the way up to Thunderhill, which I love this track, by the way. I've shot the 25-hour race many, many times. And I think the coldest I've ever been photographing any race was actually here, you know, in the middle of the night. It's like whatever, negative how many degrees. But yeah, I'm so excited to be able to actually photograph these amazing machines, including this Ferrari 250 GTO. So tell us about the actual event that you're promoting.
So the idea behind the whole event was, how do we get collectors to bring these amazing cars out and really create entertainment? That is the goal. And my view, over the years, these events haven't provided entertainment for families and kids and enthusiasts. And we want a curated event that people can come, they can see exactly what the grids are because we put them under a tent. They can, the history of every car, and that's another one of our mandates, is it has to be a period racing car with authentic race history. And what we have today is, which is fine, we have a lot of race groups, but they're cars that never raced in period. We want the cars that either the factory sponsored or a privateer sponsored, but very special cars that ran at Nürburgring and Le Mans and Daytona and Silverstone and around the world. You name it, every track pretty much around the world, and we're bringing these cars, whether it's Formula One or early ERA from the 30s.
Well, this is actually really an interesting concept because, for example, when this ran new and when it was competing, I wasn't even a thought yet, you know? People like myself, car enthusiasts like myself, we weren't able to see a lot of these vehicles run when they were competing.
Right.
And for them to actually get pushed on track, that is something special.
It is, and to get GTO out is very extraordinary. We had two GTOs at our inaugural event, and we actually have two GTOs running again. One of them is this one, which I'll be driving, and another great collector has agreed to bring his GTO. So it will be a pretty rare sight to see two GTOs dueling it out at Velocity at Laguna Seca in November.
Okay, so the joke that I made today on Instagram was that this car, I mean, there's so many numbers that get thrown around, right? There's so many videos, articles, so much about this car, just full on books dedicated to this car. The joke I made is that I couldn't even afford one bolt on this thing, you know, because it's so expensive. But what makes you guys want to keep driving this on track? It obviously doesn't devalue it, right?
Well, when Tom bought this car, he bought it, I think, this is his second GTO, but he bought it almost 30 years ago. You know, valuations were considerably different. He has grown up racing this car. He's been in almost 300 races in it, whether it's in the US or in Europe. But having these cars out there, we want to show them. We want people to see them and hear them. And look, race cars are race cars. They occasionally, something can happen to them. This one just happens to be extraordinarily valuable. But a lot of the collectors today buy them, but then they put them in their private garages. And I want to push everybody to bring these cars out, because one of my views is that cars belong to people. They don't, you're a caretaker if you own it. That's great. Congratulations. You're a really rich guy. Well done. But my view is we have an obligation to bring all these cars out. That's why we're driving all of these cars, the Birdcage, the GTO, the Parnelli Jones boss, we could all just stuff them away, but having them out, to me, is just such a blast.
Well, okay, so you as a driver, you get to appreciate it, you get to race it, drive it. Me as a photographer, one of the things that I read a lot about this car is a lot of people say it is the most beautiful car, right? And I've had a chance to photograph it a couple times here and there, but to have it to myself on the Thunderhill racetrack at turn 15 with the sunrise, with that perfect fried egg, coming over the horizon. I don't know, I was kind of beside myself, honestly. Like it was just I had such an experience, I had a moment. You have moments all the time with this thing on track, but personally as a photographer, my life's work is capturing cars, car culture, traveling the world, photographing cars. Being able to have this, seriously, like when I said I woke up and I had no idea I was gonna photograph this, I was not kidding, but it was a good experience and I enjoyed it. But let's actually talk about this car in particular. So I don't actually know too much mechanical things about this car. What am I looking at here?
Well, we probably should have a real expert out here, Tom, but it's what made these cars legendary was their V12s, 6 carburetors.
Right, well, one for 2 cylinders, right?
Exactly. So I mean, it's just, when we get in it in a few minutes, you'll just be blown away by the sheer power, torque, but what's amazing about it is how elegant these cars are. They're not, there's a Boss 302 right there, which is a rumble, rougher. These cars are like sewing machines with 700 horsepower. I mean, they're just, what's so unique about these cars, the engine, the suspension, the chassis, the weight, the balance, made these cars incredibly special.
So how much power does this make? What's your guess?
I'm guessing it's 350 horsepower. But
that's actually a lot.
For 1962, yeah.
Right, that is a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, I'm guessing. It's 2.5 liter, so it could be a little bit less than that. But it's a pretty high performance engine. We run it at 7,000 RPM. So, and you can push it to 8.
Yeah, I mean,
and in 1962, there weren't very many cars you could push anything to that kind of RPMs.
There's just so many things that I love about this vehicle. Part of it is how crude a lot of the things are. You look at some of the welds, you look at some of the work. I mean, but back then, it was top of the line, right?
Well, it was top of the line, but remember, these cars were built as race cars primarily. This was a dual-purpose car. It was a GT, so you could either race it, drive it on the road, or do both. So back in the day, in '62, and many of the guys drove the car daily, but they drove it to the track to race it. So that's what makes, these cars in some ways very, very special.
That is incredible. You got the 6 Webers. I love the firing order. It's just like a plate on there.
Well, we didn't want the Italians to get confused, so we had to remember.
The wheels, the tires, the wire wheels, the period correct tires. It's kind of cool that Dunlop still makes stuff for this.
They really do. They run a series of them every 2 years just about, and then they'll come back. And I actually don't know if it's Dunlop or whether there's a company that actually has gotten all the molds. They got the molds from Dunlop to recreate these tires. So they are the same compound that was run back in period, which makes it on some days a little challenging because today's more contemporary tires have much more grip. But one of the things we insist on at Velocity, you have to run the tire that car ran in its racing period. You can't modify it and put a Hoosier on it or some other tire.
Yeah, speaking of tires, it actually has a spare tire because before we started rolling, we were talking about the fact that you actually have to have a spare when you were running Le Mans all those years ago.
Exactly.
Right?
Back in the day, you had to, I believe, number 1, have a passenger seat, and number 2, had to have a spare tire and a jack to go with it. I don't see the jack nearby. But
another really iconic thing about this car is just the way the exhaust exits. It's almost like an afterthought, but it just produces this crazy sound that's unlike anything else.
It is. These V12 engines, I mean, they're just so extraordinary. And to think this car was built in 1962, which, was, almost 60 years ago, is amazing.
So, first thing I noticed, that gated shifter. That's just, it's so crazy. It's like
almost
out
a piece of
place.
art, right?
Yeah, but it's so cool that it's just sitting there.
Yeah. Functionality came first, right? And when you think about how the lines on this car are so sexy that, but it was done by an artist, right? They were just guessing There was no wind tunnels, there was no computer, there was no aerodynamics that they knew about specifically other than what they thought was right. And I think that's some of the beauty of these cars from the late 50s and early 60s.
Yeah, it was all form first and then function later. I mean, but just the craftsmanship, you look at this and it's just so crazy that this has lasted, I guess, the test of time. All of this stuff. It's so crazy.
Yeah, but it is function over form. That's how these cars were built, and they were built to go fast, they were built to win, and then they were built so that next year you just started on another car.
Yeah, even like the welds here on the wheel well here, that was one of the first things that a lot of my followers pointed out. They're like, how is it that it looks like this? But a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these old race cars, they're just this crude, but on the outside it just looks so pretty. It just looks right.
Yeah, back in the day, look, the goal was how do you get this car on the track, right? They honestly did not have the luxury of 2 years to make every weld perfect. They had an idea, whether it was this car or like a birdcage with lightweight tube frames, all of that. The welding is relatively primitive, but they were all new ideas to make these cars lighter.
That's incredible. Okay, so I can't believe it, but I'm actually going to ride with you on track. This is going to be interesting. So we'll see how this works out. But yeah, I definitely have to say this is the most expensive car that I've photographed as well as ridden in. Yeah.
All right, Larry, let's go. We're looking
go.
forward to it.
Ah, just the gauges too.
Yeah,
Incredible.
it's such a throwback, huh?
Yeah.
So simple.
Like an old watch.
So functional.
Jeff. That was just
Isn't that wild?
so cool. That was just incredible. I don't know what to say. I mean,
The car is amazing.
yeah.
The car is absolutely amazing. The way this thing handles the weight, the balance. I mean, it is, it's kind of incredible actually. I mean, you realize how special and unique this car is.
Okay, so this is kind of a theme that I always talk about when I feature these historic cars. This was fun now, and I could see, you know, you're at the limit, which actually I was surprised at how much grip these old tires have.
Yeah, once you get them warm, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're not bad, but the thing that really blew me away the most is, like, could you imagine back in 1962, like, if somebody were to get in this car? I couldn't even imagine. It would just, I mean, this is a time machine, right? We're essentially experiencing something that all those years ago they were just experiencing for the first time, and it was just
100%.
so mind-blowing to them.
But that's exactly right, though. That's what we are trying to showcase at Velocity is every car that's there was invited because they were at the top of their game in technology, car weight, engine performance, tires. I mean, when you consider what automotive development has done for racing and then taken that knowledge and thrown it into automobiles, I mean, it is unbelievable.
Couple things I noticed. So it doesn't have a speedometer, huh?
Yeah, you didn't need to know back then. I don't think the Italians cared how fast you went, but you certainly didn't want to over rev it. So you saw I kind of kept it around 6,500 RPM. A couple times we got it up to 7,500.
I see, because it doesn't actually have a limiter. It just lets you rev continue.
This one, I'm 99% sure does not have a limiter. So I'm always, some of the cars I don't have to watch, like the Ford GT, that's got a rev limiter. The Boss has a rev, this does not. But this, we just take it, we just kind of drift it up. It's got spare power though at 7,000 RPM. So.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed, it is a hot day today, and you were driving this, like, you were hot lapping this quite a bit. It didn't overheat at all, huh?
No, these cars, you know, if you can keep engine water or air flowing over the radiator, they don't want to go 25 miles an hour. They want to go 100 miles an hour. So typically we could get up to, you know, a day like today, 90 degrees without any issues.
Well, thank you so much. That was definitely an experience. I just cannot believe how much you're muscling that wheel. Like, you're sawing that thing to get the traction out of it. Like, it was just super cool to see. It was super cool. I appreciate it.
Great.
It
Well,
was
nice
a lot of
meeting
fun.
you. So
Yeah, nice meeting
that
you
was
too.
fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we can
Thanks.
check out the event. I think.
I hope you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
November 11th.
Yeah, November 11th. If you guys are in California, actually, it's honestly a big enough event where it's worth traveling across country and across the world to check out, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, we've got such extraordinary cars coming, and we're bringing McLarens from the McLaren Museum. We've got a Formula One collection that's second to none. We've got James Hetfield's collection is coming because we want to show people more than just race cars. We're going to see, you know, custom cars, race cars, you name it.
Yeah, if you guys have ever wanted to go to Laguna Seca, honestly, it's arguably the most famous corner in the world, right? Is at Laguna Seca.
The corkscrew.
Yeah, if you want to see the corkscrew, it is honestly the best viewing track, really, because you're just sitting on the lawn, you're watching the cars go down the corkscrew. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, hope to see you guys there.